So many writers are living in this little fantasy world where they think that having kids or getting married is going to be a death sentence for their writing career. And this is being fueled by the two different sides of culture. One being the red pill boys who say, there's too many superficial women out there. All women are crazy and take all my time. I'm a sad boy. And then on the other side, women who are trying to break free and live their best lives and not be chained down by children. But in this video, I'm going to share with you guys the objective numbers of the canonical authors behind me and how many of them were married and had kids. Because here on Write Conscious, I help authors create a literary renaissance. And that requires me to remove some of the superstition around becoming a writer, to question the consensual reality, the transcendental signifier many of us have of the writer. Because there are countless authors out there who really don't want to be authors, but they see the persona of the author as just the best way to live out their malignant qualities and have a shield for doing that. And because we also live in this Andrew Huberman optimized culture, writers think that they need this insane amount of time to be successful, that they can't get married and have kids or do X, Y, or Z because that's going to take away all their time from becoming a great author and going full time and yada, yada, yada. And I'm going to prove today in this video with pretty high numbers that that is not the case, that most of the people behind me were married and had kids. And I have to say, you don't need to get married and have kids. But on this channel, I talk about how you are not the outlier, that every writer out there most of the time believes that they are different, and we are. Most people in my friend group do not read, do not write, do not care about the things that I care about. And so it's really easy to fall into this mentality that nobody understands me and I am the outlier. And most of the authors behind me have maybe one or two outlier traits that differ from the majority. But I know countless authors who, in terms of their practices on the page and in their life, have 7, 8, 9, 10 outlier qualities, which make it almost impossible to succeed. And so I wanted to give that little preamble because as artists, we view ourselves in this magical way, but we are no different than many other trades. We have to put the work in if we want to attain mastery. And we are in a super competitive field, a field where people can get better and continue to publish into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And people in other fields, professional sports, business, because they don't have that magic a lot of the time, they solve all this outlier stuff. This is what's solved in school and with coaches, but as writers, when we are isolated, we don't think about that stuff. And so let's hop into the numbers, everybody. And once again, to put this list together, I just compiled out 100 of the best poets, novelists, and playwrights, screenwriters of the 21st and 20th century. There can be variation in that list, obviously, between you and me, but we would probably get at least 70 plus of the same people. I didn't include like outlier authors who I love that nobody knows about. So 89% of authors married at least once. And in America, 87% of adults over 55 married at least once. And so in terms of marriage, 90% of the people behind me were married at least one time. And that is very similar to the national average. And people over 55 is a good statistic because if we look at all adults, there's a group of people from 18 to 30 who aren't, married. Married is fast because they are starting their life. And so this is an interesting stat because the whole idea of the red pill lonely authors screw women is somewhat problematic because 90% of authors behind me figured out how to at least marry someone. I'm not sitting here and saying that 90% of the people who were married were good partners. There are people like Cormac McCarthy and many others who weren't the best spouses, Alice Munro, or the best parent. But this is important because they made it happen. And even more crucially, They made it happen because they had someone supporting them. My wife loves and supports me unconditionally. And the red pillars will say, that's because you're successful. She supported me when I had 0 subscribers. She supported me when we had to go downsize and live in crappy places and do all this other stuff. And FYI, if you think the world is just filled with superficial women or men, then that means that you are not a high value person yourself and that you need to change that. That there are plenty of people out there, women or men, who are more intellectual, emotional, spiritual, physically fit than you are, but you just aren't good enough yet to get them. And that is a you problem, not a society problem. That all throughout time, there have been people who sucked, and that will continue forever. And right now, you suck and are trying to make it seem like we have just totally devolved. And so a support system is insurmountable. That's why you hear so many authors talk about their support from their wife. They're not trying to just gas up their wife so that they can get a blowjob that night or something like that. They actually mean it. And when you know couples, like real couples that function together, you see that they do better. And some of the time, while you're young, that means like Stephen King and countless others, that both people are working. That when you have 2 people working, it's easier to get by. And also with 2 people, there are less household responsibilities and more opportunities for people to see the flaws and weaknesses, not just in yourself, but how you are living your life. For instance, my wife runs a much tighter ship with cleaning than I did before I met her. And now, over the course of years, I have learned to reach her standard, and it's been automatic. And so now our house, even with the kid and even with the insane amount of time we spend on other things, is almost always clean. My office and my even like how I run my business with folders and all that is way more organized. My goals, all this stuff because of her has dramatically improved. I could act like I could do that on my own, but I knew for the 7 years or whatever of adulthood before I met her that I needed to be more clean and be more organized and do all these things. But I tried a million times to get better at it, and I never did. But once I had someone help me and lead the way and hold me accountable, it became easy. And now it's automatic. And that's translated in so many different areas of my life. And I could talk about so many other things she's shown me where I have been elevated. And that's what happens when you are vulnerable. That's what happens when you are intimate. Yes, there are hard times. Yes, everybody argues. Sometimes you have to give up logic, all the logic pros. I have to fight back. She said something that doesn't compute with my mathematical proportions. I must argue and prove her or him right, which is also a beautiful thing to overcome logic at every moment of the day. Anyway, that's why so many authors were married. And like I said, some of them weren't successful, but if we even remove the ones that weren't successful, I can guarantee that number is still 65 or 70% of authors behind me were married and had a good system of support behind them. And that's why they had the time to do what they did. Anytime you get into a group, even just with one other person, you can always do more, most of the time. And so our next group of statistics, and this is the big one, this is where everyone's going to start twitching. 68% of the best authors of all time had children. 69% of adults over 55 had children. So once again, just totally aligned with the norms. Authors are not this special class of people. Like I said, the marriage numbers and the children numbers are exactly the same. This idea of the isolated writer that doesn't have anyone and it's this rare exception when you can get married is not true. Being a writer is no different than any other profession. And being a writer while you have a job and are trying to make it happen is no different than people all throughout time who have a side hustle, who work random jobs. I have a friend right now who's struggling financially and he's got to go do DoorDash for his family after his job. I'm working OT right now after my job doing this channel, even though it's more of a passion project, but whatever. So hear that number. We'll just round it up. 70% of authors behind me had children, and it didn't ruin their lives. They still produced great work. 70%. Many of them had multiple children. Some of them had a lot of children. Some of these authors were terrible parents, but most of them were not. And so what this really strikes to me is that, one, when you have children, you have a deeper incentive to do well. You want to do well, not just to financially support them, but because you've left a legacy. But also because you are going deeper into life. Our job as storytellers and artists is to take a picture of reality or this picture from our imagination and put it down. But if that picture sucks, then our writing kind of sucks. If you have this crappy idea or foundation, there's only so much that purple prose and little tricks can do for it. But some of the writers that we all love were impassioned with life, went deep into life, lived life to its fullest. And a good way to do that is to have kids, is to get out. My wife and I's life is much more active since we had a kid than it was before. We're walking, we're doing this, we're doing that, going to the park every day. Like, it's crazy. Same is true with like a dog. It's like and it's only going to get crazier as I have more kids and they get older. And I want to do better and I want to show them things. And then because of the chaos, it also makes me want to have more time for silence. Since having my daughter, I've wasted time, obviously. We all do. But the amount of time I waste has dramatically decreased because when she's awake, I want to spend as much time with her as possible. And then when she's asleep or I need to do something, I'm on it. I'm not sitting and scrolling or messing around or like arguing with people in my YouTube comments. I'm on it because I'm like, okay, I want to get this done so that I can either go hang back out with her or relax or, do something important. So many of us waste this insane amount of time, and kids make it really easy to do that. I don't think I've taken a nap in like a long time. I know a lot of adults who have kids feel the same way. And taking naps is good for your health and all this stuff, but it just makes me wake up every day and push and have a purpose. And I know these are all things we've all heard before, but I really think it's relevant to being an author. And I understand that you may not be a person who someone would want to marry right now, or you're not a person who you think would be a good parent. But a part of the job of being a writer, of being an artist, is to be continually improving yourself. If you don't change who you are and transform yourself as a person, then your art is going to suffer, especially over 5 or 10 years. And so you may not be ready right now to get married. You may be 21 listening to this, and that's great, bro. Go live life. But think about this over 5 or 10 years. If you are a 27-year-old introverted woman right now who can never imagine having children, but you have all these other problems in your life and you're not going anywhere, well, what would happen to your writing and to your life if you became a person who could have children and be successful at it and be, outward and all these other things? Would that be good or bad for your writing? And I'm not saying fake it. I'm just saying slowly do it over 5 or 10 years. I can guarantee you that would be one of the biggest things that you ever did for your writing career in terms of spreading your work, but also getting better as a writer. And so if we're going to create a literary renaissance, it's not through isolation. It's through the eye of the storm. It's through becoming better. You write transformative fiction by transforming yourself first. You become a wake-up artist because you want to be this bodhisattva. But being a bodhisattva is not just having the information, but being a person that people want to have them help over the wall. We all know that we should do X, Y, and Z. You guys don't need anything from me on this channel, but you guys want my help because you like me or resonate with me in whatever way. You want me to be the one to help you over the wall, not some other rando, or you don't want to go hop the wall by yourself, and that's okay. I've had countless people help me over a million different walls, and that doesn't make me a weakling or anything, or a super fan or a simp or whatever. Because if you are on a heart-oriented path, if you are on a path of healing, on the path of light, to get really woo here, it's not even woo, then a lot of those malignant expectations and blockades just don't matter. You see that they are just fake. And so I do think, especially in our society where people are being married less and less kids are being born, that this anti-natalist approach is retarded. I'll just say it. I think that people acting like this is the end of the world and bringing children into this world is a terrible idea is dumb. Because if you bring them into the world and you raise them right and you protect them, and things can happen, unfortunate, we're literature lovers. Tragedies around every corner. But if you do a good job, they're going to be fine. If you do a better job than your parents did and realize everything that they did wrong and get a little bit of information and contemplate and have a good partner, you'll be fine. Because the literary renaissance, the journey is not over with us. It continues on when we are gone. And so thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for the support. And I will see you guys very soon in the next video.